So today we will start our class from the portion which we left last day. Last day we were discussing about the craft production area, right? And which type of stones were used for craft production and which type of crafts were done. All these we have seen last day. And today we will see the centers for craft production. Today we will see this. What happens that I told you that there are some places like Chanhudaro, Lothal, Nageshwar. These places, they were full of productions and they used to produce a number of goods together, right? But how do archaeologists or historians, how do they understand that this was a craft production area? Because that time not you were present, not I was present, not the historians were present, right? So they follow some strategies, right? The strategies are like, number one is raw material, which means that wherever the proper material is available, industries are tend to grow there. In class 11 you have studied about Industrial Revolution of England. There I told you that as England had ample supply of iron ore, ample supply of coal, water and other amenities which were favorable for industries, that's why the industries grew in that particular area, right, in England. So here also, wherever the availability of raw material is there, so there you can expect that people are creating the industries or craft production area like Nageshwar, Lothal, Balakot, these are seashore areas. So these are seashore areas, so we can expect that these places will be the craft production area for shell jewelries. Okay? So this is how one decision was taken, that as we can see the raw material present, so we can understand production area will be that particular place. And number two is very interesting. It is the waste and rejects. Historians, they have seen that wherever you have an industry, wherever you produce something in a huge amount, there you will definitely have a waste of that particular product. Think about a leather factory where shoes are being made. Shoes are being made from leather and some portions of cutting leather is thrown outside. Think about a paper factory, paper mill. Outside the paper mill, many crumpled papers will be thrown out. Think about a rice mill. Just beside our school there is a rice mill. So we can see the husk of rice, the burned portion of that rice is stored there, right? So wherever the waste products are being found in the Harappan civilization, the archaeologists have understood that that can be a place for craft production. Not only waste, rejects. Some crafts are not in proper shape, so you throw it out. Some beads are not properly made. So some problem was there while making you made a mistake, while doing that you made a mistake and you throw it outside. So waste and rejects were another process through which the historians could understand the craft production area, like for example it was done in Chanhu Garo. Right? Clear? Any questions? Yes, Brishti, I know you are present. I have given the attendance to you. No problem. Any questions regarding this topic? Otherwise, I will move to the next one. Otherwise, I will move to the next topic. Okay, fine. So, next topic is procuring materials. This is also related to this industries and craft production. So what happens that when you make something and you have the raw material, you make the craft center there, but it's not always like this, that everything which you need will be present at your place, right? So you have to import some products from some parts of the country, some parts of the civilization, some parts of the world to make or to complete your production, right? So in Harappan civilization also we can see this type of thing. What happens? Okay, Jennifer is here and I think Shomshubra is also there, right? Jennifer and Shomshubra. Shomshubra, are you present? That makes it 10, yes. So what happens that in Harappan civilization also they needed something which is not present from their civilization area, like from far away Afghanistan, from Shortughai, they used to import a blue colored stone which is known as lapis lazuli. You know that Enmarker also wanted this, right? And he sent his messenger to bring lapis lazuli, and that messenger, he crossed mountains after mountains, rivers after rivers, right? So it's very obvious that from Mesopotamia also he came to Shortughai, that is near Afghanistan, to take lapis lazuli, because we know that Harappan civilization and Mesopotamian civilizations were contemporary. So isn't it exciting that last year you read about an epic written in Mesopotamian civilization maybe 3000 years ago. That day you heard about a stone and you read the story that a king sent his messenger to a distant land to be quoted, right? And you didn't know the name of that distant land. But this year, when you are studying about Harappan civilization, which is also a contemporary of the Mesopotamian civilization, you are getting a name that Afghanistan was a producing area for lapis lazuli. And Afghanistan, if you check in the map, is in the middle of both the civilizations. From Harappan civilization, you have to go west, and from Mesopotamian civilization, you have to come east, and you have to cross mountains of Iran, and here you have to cross Himalaya, then Hindu Kush to reach Afghanistan, right? So Shortughai was the place from where lapis lazuli was brought in Harappan civilization. Not only that, they also needed. Acha, Shortughai, I have mentioned Shortughai earlier also. In which context I have mentioned about Shortughai? Let me see if you remember or not. Shortughai I have mentioned also. Yes, Afghanistan, but for some reason I have mentioned it. I have named it. There in Shortughai, not only lapis lazuli, another thing of this civilization can be seen. Let me see. Very good, Meghna. Very, very good. It's the canals. Yes, Prerna. The canals were found in Shortughai. Very good. So always try to remember. Always brush up your study. Always brush up. Okay, just go through after that every class, just go through the pages and just see whether you remember everything or not. Okay, so Shortughai was a place from where they used to bring lapis lazuli. From the Himalaya region, they used to bring wood, that is timber. Okay, because see, the area where Harappan civilization is located, it's a semi-arid region. There you don't have big forests, and wooden furniture or wooden products which are made of wood needed strong wood, which is grown or which grows near the Himalayan region. So from Himalaya they used to brought wood. From South India, supposedly it was a gold mine there in South India. Next chapter you will read about it. In South India, from South India they used to bring gold for ornaments and for other products. So this is how from within the civilization or within the subcontinent, the Harappan civilization, they used to bring or they used to procure materials for craft production. Not only this internal import system was going on. The Harappans, they had a connection with the world itself. They had a very, very good connection with other civilizations, and they had a regular import-export business there. Right? How do we understand that? We understand that from Oman. In page number 13, I think you have a map. There you can check it that in Oman, which has an older name as Magan. From Oman, the Harappans used to import copper. What is the proof? The proof is that in Oman, the copper had a nickel extract in them, and in Harappan civilization, the copper products which were found had a nickel extract. So it's very well understood, we can very well understand that the Omani copper was used in Harappa, and Oman was always used or known as Magan in Mesopotamian texts. So from Mesopotamian texts we got to know that Oman, today's Oman, were known as Magan, and maybe the Harappan civilization or today's Harappa and Mohenjo-daro civilization were known as Meluha, because in Mesopotamian text there is mention about Meluha. There is a mention about Meluha from where? From where carnelian beads, shell jewelries were brought in Mesopotamia. So the Mesopotamian civilization which you read last year about Mari, about Uruk, those people had a trading relation with the Harappan civilization. Now, okay. So they had a trading relationship with Mesopotamia, right? So what is there that Meluha used to export carnelian beads to Mesopotamia. Not only that, in Mesopotamian text we got a mention of a bird which is known as a royal bird, which the Mesopotamians imported to keep at the royal palaces, and they named that bird as Hajar bird. And from the description of this Hajar bird, we understand that it is the peacock, and peacock is only available in India, is only available in Harappan civilization. So, from this reference of Hajar bird, we can conclude that Meluha was the earlier name of Harappan civilization. The contemporary civilizations, they knew the Harappan civilization as Meluha. Not only that, the Mesopotamians, they have also mentioned that the Meluha people were very adventurous and very daring. They were very good sailors and they were known as seafarers. That means they were never afraid of sea. During that time, just imagine, from today it's almost 5,000 years ago. That time they had no modern technology, they had no compass, they had no map, they had no idea about the world and its geography, but they used to take boats and ships carrying lots and lots of goods, and they started their journey, they started their expeditions from one place to another. Yes, it's very obvious that they have died in the route, they have faced lots of problems, but still they continued their journey, right? So it is very interesting, it is very a point of very pride that we were very adventurous and very daring. Okay, fine. Any questions? Otherwise, I'll go for the next. Okay, now today the next thing which we will discuss will be the next things which we will discuss today is the seals and script. The seals and scripts that we will discuss today also. Seals means that it's kind of a stamp. It's kind of a that kind of a symbol which is placed over a package of letters or a package of products which has to be delivered. The seals sometimes used to be like square, sometimes rectangular. They had certain symbols here like this. Like this, they had some pictures here like this. So seal is that. Today we also use the seals. When you go for buying mobile phones or anything, the shopkeeper shows you that the seal is not broken, and by showing it to you, they break the seal in front of you. That means that the product which is there inside is not being tampered, is not broken, is not handled by anyone else, right? So that is the point of seal. And in that time, packages were made, product is stored inside, the packages were made, and then I put a seal. And then if the seal is not broken, by not breaking the seal you can't open the package, you have to break the seal. Okay, so they say that if the seal is not broken, then the product is not tampered. Like you know that CBSE exam papers, okay, exam papers, CBSE question papers, after you do your practicals, your award list, all were sent in this manner. We always put a seal with a gala and we send it to the board. That means this is undisturbed. Okay, and in this seal, like I have drawn a very bad picture, I know, but in this type of seals, what you have some writings, this is the right, and you have some motives, some pictures, The writing is for those who can read and the motive is for those who can't read. And what is there written? The written thing is that who is sending the package. Means if I am sending the package, my name and address will be written there. And when the buyer will accept the package, will see that yes, the name and address is there. So, it is coming from that particular address. So, I will take it. Okay? This is seal. And in Harappan civilization, several number of seals have been found and most commonly known as the bull seal. There was a Pashupati seal, there was a unicorn seal and so on and so on. Most of the seals were made of clay and over that there was an impression was made and then everything was pasted. Okay? The script which is written on the seal is very interesting. You can see that this is kind of a pictorial skill. They do not have any alphabets. Like if you go to Egypt or if you check Egyptian hieroglyphs, you will see that they have scripts like this. They write this. They write in this manner. This is something. But you can see here some wavy place is there, here one eye, here one mirror type of thing, here one bird is there. But still this whole conveys a message. So, same thing happens in Harappan civilization. They also have a pictorial script. So, in each sign they want to convey some message. Not like modern day alphabetical languages or alphabetical scripts. Like in English we have 26 alphabets. We always mix and match those alphabets like C-A-T, cat, C-A-R, car. These two letters are same. I have mixed and matched these two letters and created two different words with two different meaning. But if it was in Harappa or Egyptian civilization, for cat maybe they had this kind of picture and for car maybe they had this kind of a picture. It is a pictorial representation. So that's why the problem for understanding pictorial script is there. Because in English we have only 26 letters, we only have to remember those 26 letters. But the historians have studied that in Harappan civilization the number of signs were not less than 375 to 400. That means you have to remember all these signs and understand all these signs to understand the Harappan script. It's a little bit difficult, right? But the thing is that most of the scripts of the Harappan civilization were short, not very big. The longest one the historians have found had 26 signs. The longest sentence or longest script, it had 26 signs, and like Urdu and Persian, this script was also written from right to left. We always start from left, na? This is our left hand, so we always start writing from left to right. But the Harappans, they started right from like car, is like this they used to write. Okay, so it is their form of writing. And along with the seals and scripts, another very small thing is there. There is the weights. In all over the civilization, trading and business continued, as I say, right? And trading cannot be completed without a proper measure of weights. So weights are very important, and the historians have found that in over the full, the whole civilization, they used one kind of weights. The weights were made of stones. The stones were mostly chert, C-H-E-R-T, and the weights were mostly cubical in shape, like a square, cubical in shape with different binary numbers, different binary equations are there. So with this, they used to trade, they used to weigh the things, and they used to continue the trading. Okay, so I'll stop here today. Any questions or not?